morning, everyone, and welcome. My name's Claire Stewart. I have the great privilege of being the Managing Director here at IFFR on my second time round. And it's really a privilege to be able to bring this very special talk to you this evening. We've got two of my, I think it would be fair to say, two of my favorite creatives backstage. And I'm going to start by bringing out Guy Maddin shortly, but first I have a few things to say about him. Wickedly inventive, dazzlingly playful, the films, installations, and artwork of Guy Maddin are as intoxicating as they are slippery. His deep appreciation for cinema, in its widest expression, can be felt in every frame, every collage, every performance. Ranging from the deeply personal to the fantastic, his films gleefully unlock what he himself might describe as the muck of humanity in all its gore, madness, and glory. He was the subject here at IFFR of a retrospective back in 2003 and was already making a striking impression at that time with films like Tales of Gimli Hospital, Careful, Twilight of the Ice Nymphs, and one of my favorite shorts of all time, The Heart of the World. Since then, he has directed, amongst a range of short films and other projects, such classics as The Saddest Music in the World, Branded on the Brain, and My Winnipeg. Working with his frequent collaborators, brothers Evan Johnson and Garland Johnson, he also staged at the Pompidou and elsewhere a series of performative seances channeling the ghosts of lost films, the fragments of which became an online art project as well as the feature film seances. He returned to IFFR this year with a film that some of you may have just seen called Rumours. And he also happens to be my favorite recalcitrant Canadian. Will you please join me in welcoming Guy Maddin?
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much. Should I? Okay.
There are many ways in which the world describes our next guest. One of the leading performers of our time, strong, graceful, and something that I came across a lot when I was preparing for tonight's talk, chameleon-like. To be chameleon-like is to be someone who can adapt swiftly to changing situations or environments. And when you consider the vast array of roles that Cate Blanchett has played, from her international breakout with Elizabeth, through her Oscar-winning performances in Blue Jasmine and The Aviator, to her BAFTA and Golden Globe-winning performance in Tar, that can seem like a fitting description. But I kept tripping up on this word, chameleon. I felt it was too reductive, because Cate as a performer embodies her roles so entirely that it often feels like the situations or the environments exude from her, that narratives unfold with a volition that she determines. They follow her logic, and the story and the performer become truly entwined. Cate is not only an internationally acclaimed film and theatre actor, but also an increasingly active producer, a humanitarian, an advocate, and a changemaker. We're thrilled to be welcoming her to IFFR, not only to celebrate her performance as the Chancellor of Germany, but also in her capacity as the Global Goodwill Ambassador for the UNHCR, the UN's Refugee Agency. Earlier this week, we launched together a new project to support displaced filmmakers and the stories of displacement. And that will be done in partnership with IFFR's Hubert Belz Fund. Will you please join me in making very welcome my favorite Australian recalcitrant, Cate Blanchett.
Too kind.
Hello.
Hello.
Let's get in. So I'm going to start very broad because you both come to cinema from very different places, both in the world and in terms of the role and your styles and approaches. So I'm kind of interested in origin moments. What was the moment for you each that made you go, yeah, cinema, this is my thing? What did you see that was transformative? What played out for you?
Who are you asking?
I'm asking each of you, and who would like to go first? This is going to be a little test of your dynamic.
I'll go first. Why not? I'll get out of the way, and then you can have Cate yourself. I fancied in my early 20s being a writer, but I was a good enough reader to know I could never be a good enough writer that I would want to read what I wrote. But then I discovered these kind of primitively hewn together movies that really moved me. They had writerly-like ideas, like Louis Buñuel's L'Âge d'Or. They starred non-actors, except for Gaston Madot, the lead actor, is amazing, but everyone else was his friends or people from his scene in Paris. And I discovered Eraserhead, which was a real eye-opener. Rest in peace, David. And I could not believe Eraserhead. I couldn't sleep after seeing it, not just because of the incredible vibrations I took home with me from the sound design and the shocking images, but I couldn't believe that David Lynch had made a movie about me. 10 years earlier, he clearly, I don't even need to look this up on Wikipedia, he must have had an unplanned pregnancy and married someone he didn't know and had a baby that he had to look after. My baby was a lot cuter than the Eraserhead baby, but I would get up in the middle of the night, and somehow that middle of the night trip to the bathroom would be the only time I really thought clearly and knew where I was. I'd go, I'm married, I'm a father. And I'd pee, and then the anesthetics would take over for the rest of the day, and I would go through some sort of delirious dream world. But just a couple years earlier, my father had died when I was 21, and actually, as a matter of fact, it wasn't a couple of years. What am I talking about? I found out I was going to be a father 8 hours before my dad died, and so it was kind of this really defamiliarizing of the world that happened all at once. And a few months later, I started having dreams that my father hadn't died, that he had just abandoned the family. I totally forgot the funeral in these dreams, and that he'd gone to live with a better family. And so I had and he always came home because he'd forgotten his razor or his glass eye. He had a glass eye. And I had 1 minute to convince him to come back to his original family. And so I would talk to him, and I had these recurring dreams for a number of years. And it soon got so my father's actual death receded in time enough that I couldn't quite remember his voice properly while I was awake. But in these dreams, it was there perfectly. And so I felt like when I woke up from these dreams, I never succeeded in convincing him to stay. He always went to live with this other family. So I was left with a really terrible feeling of abandonment, which is apparently pretty common among grieving people. But I was also left with this great feeling that I had just been with him. And that feeling kind of stayed with me all morning, and until about noon, when it would finally lift like a morning mist or something like that. And when I saw Eraserhead and realized you could make a movie about something so specialized as masculine, like parental, paternal discombobulation over an unplanned pregnancy, I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll make a movie about
Winnipeg.
Winnipeg, or filial discombobulation. Anyway, I decided to try to make a movie, and emboldened by Lynch, emboldened by Buñuel's bold, primitive assembly of films, I thought I could never be a writer, but maybe I could try making films and see what happens. And I've never achieved those effects that I thought I could. But I had fun trying. So that's how it started for me.
Well, you've given a lot of people quite a lot of joy in your efforts. Cate, how about you?
Films that made me think I could work in the film industry. I never, ever thought I could work in the film industry. I was resigned happily to having a career in the theatre. I didn't think I was that girl, and at the time that there certainly was a sense that women had a certain shelf life in the film industry, and a certain type of woman got to parade on screen and others didn't so much. But I loved the watching films, and I had such a eclectic taste. I think it's the benefit of growing up with, like in Australia, with 4 terrestrial channels, and the test pattern that comes on at 11 o'clock on the Australian Broadcasting Commission is that on a Saturday afternoon, you would flick through Basil Rathbone, a Sherlock Holmes, and a Western, and some kind of inventive piece of Australian children's television. So I watched a lot of horror growing up, and since I've had children, I can't watch horror at all, which is, I mean, I love my kids, but I'm a bit sad about that. But I do remember when I was at high school, I mean, back in the day when you used to have really exciting field trips with your teachers, our French teacher took us to see Visconti's L'Étranger, and it was a French excursion. Oh, yeah, it was fab. And I don't think I've seen the film since, unless I've dreamt I have, but I was hypnotized by the cinematic storytelling. And so that's when it felt like quite an adult experience. She treated us like adults. She talked about cinema in a certain way. I think I've learnt more about cinema than I did French, unfortunately, maybe, from that teacher. But also, I probably similar to you, Claire, like we grew up with such incredible moment in Australian cinema making. And so I remember seeing Picnic at Hanging Rock and Sweetie and Angel at My Table. And I thought there was this wild, idiosyncratic theatricality to daring about Jane Campion's work that seemed as a kind of a weird, lumpy clown that I was on stage, that I thought maybe I might be able to step into that frame. But yeah, it was probably somewhere in there. Yeah.
Nice.
As a sort of extension of that, we've got a fantastic program here at IFFR called Hold Video in Your Hands, which has been prompted by 2 different films about the kind of history of VHS, and VHS as a community builder, and the way that VHS has actually also had a sort of transformative effect on the way people think about film. So I'm kind of curious. As you were talking about Picnic at Hanging Rock, I was actually having a memory about my own father, who was a teacher at my school and was like running a class where he had a whole discussion about Picnic at the Hanging Rock, but I had not been allowed to watch it. So I was like, come on, Dad, what is this? But you know, those films indeed, for me, they came through television and through video recordings, and yeah, I'm interested in any sort of nostalgic crush you might have on early video experiences.
Oh,
my
entire film education was on VHS.
Yeah.
I was more of a sports nerd as a teenager, but in my early 20s, all of a sudden, my interest in cinema started at the same time that VHS came out, and so really low-res stuff, but I didn't even know it was low resolution. I'd never seen any movies on the big, vintage movies on the big screen, and I started by watching older films. And then I'd go to even worse resolution through this place called Facets Video in Chicago, which would have every title. They were kind of pirating them, I think, but they would be 10th generation VHS copies, and there was barely an image there. But I'd be so excited, and you'd have to pay at least 5 times as much as, I don't know, it's just really special. And there's the idea of sifting through banks of video snow to see a movie just made a movie more special. I don't want to just sound like an old fart reminiscing. But I mean, VHS is so great. And And then when DVDs came, you sort of just quit watching your VHS tapes. But there were some I refused to throw out. And now, thank God, there are people working in it, working with VHS cameras and making things. And we were just talking about Matthias Müeller's Home Stories, which is a celebration of melodramatic women from Douglas Sirk films and Hitchcock films.
Waking up.
Yeah, and just waking up and looking out the window and getting scared and then running back to their bedrooms. And
that's what women do, Guy.
Exactly. I know. I learned it all from Matthias Müller. And it's a celebration of VHS too, because anything that's red just bleeds, like just hemorrhaging vases of flowers and things like that. And so it's just this beautiful celebration of disastrous women, and thank you, and VHS bleeding.
And how about you, Kate?
I loved the ritual of putting it into the slot.
Oh, yeah.
Said the actress to the bishop. But there was something about knowing that it was a slightly delicate object that I really, the sound of it, it was a visceral experience putting it in, and I loved that. But I loved how it would degrade. I remember watching Mikita Nikhalkov's unfinished piece for player piano or mechanical piano. And I was doing a Chekhov at drama school. I think I was doing Cherry Orchard or something. And so I put it on, and it was really fuzzy. So the mid shots, the definition on the facial expressions was a bit blurred. But what you got was how. So what I was focusing on, it made me focus on different things. I was focusing on how he'd used the frame and how he'd blocked it, and it just made me watch it differently. But I also loved that I watched, Jane Fonda's Exercise, that was probably my most watched VHS.
This is a travelogue of my hometown, Winnipeg, and that I traveled around, as a kid, I was taken to travelogues that had live narrators all the time, and so I insisted on narrating this live, and I realized what a sleepy line delivery I was doing in the actual recording. So in the live, I could energize my narration a bit more when I saw the audience kind of sagging.
It's perfect.
I was trying to, when I was recording it, I wrote the narration by improvising it, but just 3 minutes a day, say, for a month. And I would just, my promise to myself was that I would never stop talking. But I often didn't know what to say, so I would repeat myself. And then I noticed the recording engineer getting sleepy, and so I had a perverse idea that I would make it my objective to hypnotize the recording engineer. But it resulted in a very sleepy narration. Anyway, I got to rectify that in the live deliveries, but I was starting to get sleepy watching it down there. I don't know how sleepy it looked up there.
Well, I had the great privilege of seeing you do the narration live a couple of times.
That's right, I came down to Sydney once to do it, yeah.
And the troughs. And also, of course, a number of your films where you've done live performances with Foley artists and so forth.
Right.
And I just love...
Foley artists are boredom insurance, because if the movie's sort of boring you a little bit, you can watch Foley artists make the sounds that you're seeing the physical counterpart to upstairs. And Foley artists have principles as well. They can never actually literally do the same thing that is being done on the screen. If someone is slapping a face, they have to break celery or something like that. They have to dream up something that sounds exactly like it or similar to it. And it's really fascinating watching them, and you don't even...
What was the one you did with Lou Reed?
That was the one with the Foley artists. It was called Brand Upon the Brain, and we had rotating narrators for 15 straight days in New York. And Lou Reed did one. He was during his sleep year. I did succeed, and Lou fell asleep while narrating. God bless him. I probably spent about 40,000 hours in my youth listening to his albums, and he fell asleep and couldn't be wakened during the narration. But I was so honored I was a
He
little
fell
bit...
asleep.
Yeah, I put Lou Reed to sleep. Turns out it's not that hard to do, you know.
And Cate, when did you, was My Winnipeg, I loved coming across this clip of your enthusiasm for it, and when, was this your first sort of entree to Guy's work, or had you seen other work beforehand?
No, I'd seen a lot of your shorts before.
Right.
But I think this was the one where it all came together for me.
Yes.
And I didn't realise it was you until I met you, till we spoke. I went, I remember that voice.
Yep.
But I just find it's such a synthesis of so many things that you've been playing with, and it's so beautiful, and it's so full of longing and melancholy, but it's so funny.
Oh, thanks.
And, you know, and I think that's the thing, that the tonally you create in all of the films, big and small, that you make. It's got this really particular idiosyncratic tone that it feels at once incredibly strange and profoundly familiar.
I'm kind of driven by self-pity, but I'm also sickened by it. So I'm always undercutting myself. So it results in a kind of, there's self-pity, and then the self-pity is removed, and then whatever's left, once the self-pity is put out there and then subtracted quickly, is whatever that weird thing is. Yeah, self. Just a self with his pants around his ankles. Yeah. It's whatever it is. It's irritating. But.
And Guy, if you were doing Criterion Closet and looking for Cate's films,
would you? Yes. No, that's a bit of a trap, isn't it? That wasn't a closet full of your films. I found the film. Yeah, so which one of my films?
Let's have an assumption. Let's assume Cate's not here. Yeah. No, I could answer that.
Who's your favorite actress?
I don't know which Cate films are on the Criterion label, so let's just assume
that they all are.
That they're all on. Okay, I can do this. I'll pretend I'm in the Criterion closet, and I'm a terrible actor. People convince me to act in their movies sometimes, and then it's just like we go into overtime, and they have to cut the scene. I'm very proud. I'll do some name dropping. I was in a scene once in a movie shot in Winnipeg with Laura Dern, Diane Kruger, and Kristen Stewart, and me. And the scene was cut from the movie. Anyway, I can't act, but I can pretend I'm in the Criterion closet. And I go, let's see, okay, I'm in the Criterion closet. I get really greedy in the Criterion closet. So I go, Notes on a Scandal. Oh, I love this. This is a movie with Judi Dench, Cate Blanchett, who's amazing in it. It's Cate Blanchett has an affair. She's a high school teacher. She has an affair with an underage student. And Judi Dench gets really jealous, and it's got this relentless score by Philip Glass. I love it. Into the bag it goes. Tar, of course. Here, Tar. Yes. Yes. Cate was robbed at the Oscars at Tar. I'm having my own Oscar ceremony for right now. What's this? Manifesto. Cate plays like a dozen characters, and she's reading like artistic and political manifestos. It's unbelievable. And then there's, what's this? A box set of her plays that she did in Australia. I've always wanted to see her in Jean Genet's The Maids and in Streetcar. So thank God Criterion has dug up recordings of her plays. So I get to see that. And here's another box set of Documentary Now, this amazing Bill Hader.
You saw that?
I love those Documentary Now. Cate's in two of my two favorite Documentary Now documentary parodies. Yes. The two hairdressers from Bagleyport, and the artist is, what is it? The artist is over here, or what is it?
Present.
The artist is present, yeah. And it's where she does an unbelievably stunning Maria Abramovitz. I don't know. Then
you're not getting out of this closet. Your bag is too full.
Yeah, I know. Peter Becker always says too greedy, and then he sorts my DVDs out in the bag because I've just been piling them in anyway. Yeah. So I guess that's it. I don't know. For now, I want to go back.
I'm having a tiny regret, picking up on what Kate was saying earlier about my Winnipeg. I'm having a tiny regret not having also mentioned poetry and melancholy in my introduction, because that's such a part of your work. And I'm going to direct kind of the same question to both of you, but with a different angle, which is just about the source of creativity. Where does that come from for you? And Guy, particularly with what we've just seen with my Winnipeg, you know, where did that concept come from? Or, you know, what is that sort of process that you go through to get to a work? And then Kate, when thinking about you and your, you know, increasingly working as a producer, and when you're looking at scripts and looking at other people's work, what are you looking for in that role? What excites you, and what kind of creativity do you look for? So maybe Guy.
Well, I've been doing this for a long time now, since I was 30, and I'm 68. So you'd think I'd be a faster learner or something like that. But at first, I was just like any youth, excited to make stuff. I was happy to sort of imitate, but imitate so ineptly that no one would notice I was imitating. You know, I was imitating my hero, Luis Buñuel. There was a bit of Lynch aspirations in what I was making, but no one would necessarily recognize it. But those were the people that emboldened me, and so I was happy to imitate, but like I say, imitate so brazenly because I knew I was such a lousy technician that I could never be busted for ripping anyone off, and it sort of turned out that I had my own DNA, my own voice, sort of. And so I was just excited to get things. And then I also loved my friends so much, and my friends were kind of muses in the traditional sense, in that they just inspired me to make things. They were so charismatic and they made me laugh a lot, and I wanted to make movies that either reproduced their effects on me or would entertain them the way they had me. And then I quickly ran out. And I was always drawing on autobiographical feelings, those dreams I told you about my father, which left me feeling sad but elated. And I quickly realized that the movies had to be about something that was going on inside of me. I made an amnesia melodrama in which not one, but all 7 characters had amnesia. And I just thought that my own life, I kept forgetting that my dad was dead every night in dreams. I kept forgetting I was married in every possible way. And I kept forgetting I was a father, even though I'm a loving father. And I don't know, just amnesia seemed, I kept forgetting, still forget, to file income tax, you know, stuff like that. So I just thought, I understand amnesia from the inside out, from the blurry, vague contours of my insides. And then I went through a few years where I had no idea, and then I just started, I thought, I know I'll start reading Greek tragedies because those things have been in print for 2,500 years. There's got to be something I can steal there. And I read Electra by Euripides. And I realized that I had been a version of Electra's brother, Orestes, in a previous relationship where my previous girlfriend had her father die on her during a Christmas concert where she was singing at age 6 on stage. And she, if I ever got up from the couch to go to the bathroom or to the kitchen, she'd go, "Where are you going?" You know, well, the real answer was, "I'm going to go die."
Poked your eyes out.
Yeah, you're going to go. Yeah, and I don't know, there was just a lot of intensity and fear in the poor woman from this trauma. But I just found so much of myself in there, so much of my jelly boy, my cowardly self. I was easily manipulated into doing things that were horrible. And so I just started culling structures from classical literature and just adding my own autobiographical elements to them. And it really excited me to find out that this Euripides guy sort of knew what he was doing. But I could add modern, 20th century, 21st century surfaces to these things, and they really worked a lot better for me, and they gave me the confidence that I was telling an okay story. Turns out no one could follow the damn things anyway, but the creativity came from, I just wanted to express myself and, or narcissistically place myself on the screen somehow, without me.
It's interesting you're talking about, in a way, not stealing, but borrowing something that, I think often we're told as developing artists that somehow you have to find your own voice, whereas I will beg, borrow and steal from anyone and anything, and I think partly it's an homage, but also partly it's a way to connect with someone, but through a recognition of a frame or a trope or a style of writing, or that somehow you're in dialogue with that filmmaker or that actor or that cinematographer. And
it almost feels like an anchor too.
Yeah, like and that it will be filtered through your own prism, and sometimes that reference will be unrecognizable, or you might end up throwing it out and it will lead you somewhere else. But I think it's often in trying to replicate in a strange way that you find something unique. It sounds counterintuitive, but I think sometimes that does happen.
I was just thinking of you performing Jim Jarmusch's Manifesto in Manifesto with the steal from everywhere. Nothing is original.
It's true. It's really true. Nothing is. I think it's the obsession with being original or breaking new ground can often be a trap. It's that thing about a writer only has, a story, or an actor only has one thing. You do only have this to work with. I mean, you can put a funny nose on, and that's good. And I wish I had facial hair, to play with, because I do envy male actors being able to do that.
In Manifesto, you have a lot of facial hair at times.
Oh, I do in one. Yes, I finally got to have a bit. But you know what I mean? Like it's just Anyway, I'm just.
And of course, you played Bob Dylan, kicked Timothy Chalamet's ass.
Well, it was a different proposition.
No, he is amazing in that movie. But kicked his ass.
That was Todd. That was Todd. And I think it's interesting. It's that like I remember seeing Todd's Superstar, his student.
His Karen
film,
Carpenter
his
picture.
Karen Carpenter story, and obviously the Carpenter estate was not particularly happy with. He did it with Barbie dolls, and they weren't particularly happy with the outcome. It was a short film, and so he couldn't get the license to have the music, so it didn't really get screened. But I got a bootleg copy, and it was so moving.
Yeah.
And so often, in that way that you collage and reference and frame, like the handmade quality that Todd employed there, and that you do so often in your films. I find it
kissing
so
cousins that way.
Moving, really moving. And I think it's sometimes I find the creative impulse is you're not watching something. You're watching something purely as an audience. You're not watching it to edify yourself, or it's just part of being alive. It's not part of becoming a better filmmaker or becoming a better actor. It's and somewhere it's interesting you're talking about dreams. You've got to trust that those things will nourish you in some way that you can't even know yet. They'll come back and haunt you.
Yeah, I love it when you wake up from a dream and you can actually remember it, for one thing, but it feels like a rich, loamy soil of a dream.
And then you wet the bed.
Yeah, and then you're just, darn. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's true. And you don't have to frontal cortex it. You can just let it be.
Yeah. I don't mean to step on your toes, but I have something, I don't even know if I can formulate into words. I might abort this question halfway through. But I've always, I remember reading, when I started reading as a young man, I didn't really read in high school. I was a big Nabokov fan, and I remember reading an interview with Vladimir Nabokov, and he said that reading for him had to produce that tiny tingle at the base of the skull. It's almost like a narcotic trickle, and he knew that when things were going well on the page, either as a writer or a reader, he got that little tingle. And I know that in other experiences that I've had as a filmmaker, I can tell myself something like a narcotic tingle is comes for a few shots in a row, or when the music actually matches an image. Or even before I was interested in film, when I played team sports, sometimes there was just a great feeling that you had. But what's it like for you as an actor? What is the good feeling feel like? What's your narcotic tingle? Is it, and do you ever get it, or do you just beat yourself up instead? Or?
Oh, no, I beat myself up a lot.
Yeah, like, do you ever allow yourself hey, that wasn't, like just a really selfish moment of, that wasn't so bad?
You mean, I mean, I do, I have that feeling on stage, that sense of where you're flowing with other people and the audience. I mean, you have such a heightened sense of audience as an actor on stage, but you're slightly dislocated from your audience in film, or you're told through various channels how the audience has felt.
Right, and you're at the mercy of editing and other things.
Yeah. But I don't think I'd never dwell on that feeling. You have to let it go. It's like a love affair. It's sort of like, whoa, that was amazing, and then it's out the door. And it's I think you learn a lot more from your embarrassing failures than you do that moment. You have to be so grateful that you had that experience of flow.
Right.
But I don't dwell on it. Do you dwell on it? No. I don't. I've rarely heard you say anything good about your work. I mean, everyone else says it, but you don't.
It's I've been trained. It's just a preemptive comment. I would see people in Winnipeg. I get beat up a lot. So if someone goes, "Hey, Guy, how you doing?" I know the movie's no good. I know.
It must be something to do with colonial outpost countries. We have the same thing in Australia.
Just get shit kicked all the time. Yeah. So I'm actually far more comfortable with people. People will come up to me and say, "I'm sorry, I haven't seen your movie yet." And I'm going, "Phew, thank God."
Well, I'm going to treat all of us to a really wonderful clip reel of Cate's performances that was put together by our friends at the San Sebastian Film Festival, where she received a Lifetime Achievement Award last year. So sorry, Guy, this is really going to make you feel bad.
Oh, this is when I was wishing out loud that I could come,
I know.
so that we could reenact Betty Davis's death at the San Sebastian.
Yes, he was obsessed. He kept texting me saying, "Do you know Betty Davis? Which room are you in? Betty Davis died in that hotel." Yeah.
We wanted to reenact it. I love Betty Davis. Like I love her as much as anything.
Yeah,
but
me too.
What better way to pay tribute than to reenact her death with Cate Blanchett as Betty?
But I didn't see her in All About Eve and all these great moments in, iconic moments of Hollywood cinema. I first saw her in a horror movie on television that she'd made called Scream, Pretty Peggy, Scream. Have you seen that?
Oh. That's one of the hagsploitation.
Yeah.
A great term.
Yeah.
Why doesn't anyone use that term anymore?
Hagsploitation. I can't think why.
No, I don't understand that either, Guy.
I'm going to bring it back.
I'm going to jump from cinema and just pick up on some of those fantastic shots, the facial hair included, from Manifesto. And, because here at IFFR we have a long-standing commitment to immersive work and installation work through what is now the Art Directions program. And when I started coming to this festival 27 years ago, was a program called Exploding Cinema. It was really the first international film festival to be kind of interested in this space. And since you've both worked in very different ways with installation and, Cate, you've also been involved producing sort of virtual reality work as well.
The Marshmallow Laser Feast,
yeah, exactly. So what kind of attracts you to this space, and maybe give us a bit of a sense of some of the projects that you've worked on in this space, which might be less known for the audience here tonight.
We presented something at Cannes with Marshmallow Laser Feast, which was about the breath, and it was at Tribeca Film Festival, and in answer to your question, I'm attracted to the space because I know absolutely nothing about it. But I think that's probably bedrock to why I do anything. It's like, I don't know anything about that genre. I don't know anything, about, I've never worked with that actor or that director, and so it's a process of trying to find out. But it's, I'm interested in understanding the boundaries or the limitations of each form, and to interact with audiences in different ways, and in a binary way, stage and screen, but then it's also, as you're saying, it's in a more immersive space, but which I found really interesting, and doing that multi-channel work, which I've done a couple of times with Julian Rosefeld, was really fantastic, because in a gallery space or a museum space, people enter it with a slightly more meandering intention. They have time,
right,
and they're ready for an encounter, where you're not necessarily sure anymore how people are going to receive, or I hate the word consume, but watch or experience the work you make. So it's hard to know, is this going to be big or small, or if they're going to see it at all. So that's why I think it's just expanding that sense of audience for me.
For you, Guy?
Mr. Maddin?
I've always felt my installation, that I didn't understand what installations should be, but I thought I did start doing them, but I felt like I did with cinema, I felt like I was cheating and sneaking in through the back door somehow. The first installation I did was just movie making, but I went to the Centre Pompidou, where they'd had a retrospective of me the previous year, and I just did a cold call on them and said, I would like to shoot a movie in your lobby. Will you let me do that? And they actually happened to have 3 weeks available in a few months' time. And so I did. And we called it an installation, but it was a cheat kind of, because I was just shooting movies, but in public. It was kind of like an ant farm, where you have a bunch of ants and some soil between two panes of glass, and people can just watch ants doing it. But I made it more elaborate, and I tried to be more of a showman, to make it more of an installation. But it was kind of like I had an idea, and then I was just trying to make it more like an installation. But so it didn't feel legit. But there was a time where I had a public shoot, and I really enjoyed shooting in public, so I set up public shoots in other public spaces, and one of them fell through at the last second. It wasn't financed properly, and it fell through, but I was obliged to supply something to the museum, and so at the last second I came up with something that was an installation. I had a brother die on me when I was 7, and I inherited his bedroom right away, and so the bedroom was mine, but it was also still his for the longest time, and so there was 2 of us in there, and his influence was tremendous, and it was a really romantic, beautiful relationship I had with him posthumously. And so I recreated the bedroom, and I still owned most of the things he left me, reel-to-reel tape recorders and Ouija boards and seashells, and I put them all in there. And then I just recreated some really personal elements surrounding his death, and put them, and had a performance in there and stuff. And it meant a lot to me. I can't imagine what it could have possibly have meant to anyone encountering it, but people seemed to like it. So
I very much enjoyed looking down at you from above on that walkway in the Pompidou. It was
at the Pompidou, right. We were in the basement next to the public washrooms, where there was a lot of public sex. And that you could hear sort of like elephants trumpeting or something like that, and a lot of drug deals going down and stuff. But it was very public, and we were recording dialogue in this movie, but there's a clamor. There are thousands of people in the Centre Pompidou at any given moment, but there are so many voices that they kind of finally turned into the same sound you get by holding a seashell up to your ear. And so all the voices canceled each other out, and we were able to record dialogue just fine. And it was very strange. I've always been very lucky.
Let's move on to Rumours. And how many people in the audience tonight saw it in the session just before? Oh, yeah.
That looks like
a
a
lot.
good
That's
chunk.
good. That's a big
Thanks for
chunk.
coming out, by the way.
Thanks for staying here.
Yes.
Guy shared with me a clip of the actual G7. So for those of you who don't know, the film is a kind of absurdist take on the, I don't know, you can do this better than me.
Well, it's just we, Evan and Galen, my two partners, they're brothers, Evan and Galen Johnson, and I would, by way of work avoidance, often watch YouTube clips of the G7 summits for some reason. It's just endlessly, it's like they're choreographed like Robert Wilson, like durational performance pieces. And there's just, like Cate has said many times, there's a way that politicians on the global stage walk and gesture that just isn't natural. It's a kind of acting that's unique to politicians. It's not stage acting, it's not movie acting, it's world leader acting. And they have a way of greeting each other. World leaders that have no use for each other, they're often with their spouses, greet each other in a weird silent movie pantomime that indicates that they're really getting along and laughing. Boris Johnson backslapping Emmanuel Macron and so on. And so we just fell in love with G7 leaders. From these YouTube clips, we would project personalities onto them that seemed kind of obvious. And often the cameras were positioned hundreds of meters away with a long lens, and so there's no way you could hear them, but there was just an absurd choreography to the way they walked. I was really proud of when Canada once hosted a G7 summit, and they'd obviously rehearsed with stand-ins, probably, all the leaders marching down, but they didn't plan on one thing. They had to come down the stairs of this really nice 150-year-old railway hotel that was really beautiful. But I guess there was a morning rainfall, and one of the steps had a little puddle on it, about this big, and every world leader had to come down the stairs, and they saw a puddle, and they had to go, what do I do? And go around the puddle. And one after another, we just watched that. But I don't know, anyway.
We're doomed.
Yes. These world leaders, a puddle, you know.
And not a giant brain.
Yeah, yeah.
Get another beer. Wow. And not as
Well,
research,
like
just for entertainment.
Justin Trudeau is like juggling imaginary large testicles or something like that. It's just something that they're, and then, what's her name? Why am I blanking on her name?
Van der Leyen.
Yeah, Ursula.
Ursula
Van der Leyen is cutting the air into pieces with her hands. And it's performative. They're definitely not having a conversation.
So, Cate, can we go to maybe first how you came to Rumours as a project? At what point did you come in, and also what was your response to receiving clips like this from a performance point of view?
Well, we just got talking, didn't we? And then you sent me the script, and but you know, it's
yeah, Ari Aster was a mutual connection.
That's right. It was through Ari Aster.
Yeah, I know him a bit, and you knew him a bit, and he just said, "I can."
That's right.
You know, you want me to arrange a call, and so he did.
We had a call, and that was it. But I mean, when you're talking about a filmmaker like Guy, then you know you're reading. You've already decided to do it, so then the script is a document towards spending time with you on set, so I mean that certainly helped for tone, because obviously you take your body of work and you think, we're going to move in that direction, and this was a kind of, I hate to use the word departure because it's like you've left something behind that you don't want anymore, but it was slightly a different direction, I think, because the three of you were. But then it's very different again to Green Fog that you made with Evan and Galen.
Yeah, we make a lot of the Green Fog is a movie we made just before, which is a found footage movie, so it's totally different. It's a remake of Vertigo, strangely, but using found footage.
So
anyway,
in this instance, this footage was incredibly helpful to know what world we were embarking into.
And then we didn't imitate it perfectly. We couldn't afford the extras, for one thing, you know, and but there was that spirit of mischief or just reverence for ridiculousness or something that was in there. I do remember on the call, I was quite excited to talk to you, of course.
Likewise.
And I, when I looked at my cell phone afterwards, it had been exactly 61 minutes. And I do remember that we just spoke about, we didn't really speak about the project much. I don't remember exactly what we spoke about, but I remember the first 60 minutes being
interesting, and the last minute was...
Well, it was like, are we going to talk about the project? Is she just letting me down gently for an hour or something? And
I was waiting for you to bring it up.
Yeah, to let you down gently. Yeah, that's right. Sorry, Kate, you're not allowed to be in my movie. Yeah. No, I was a little bit scared to bring up the movie, but anyway, at the last second, you just said, I'll do the movie.
Well, someone had to say it.
Yeah, someone had to say it. Yeah, so
you
the
didn't
call
ask
was
me,
the call
so
was
I just
getting.
had to offer myself.
I know. I was always like that with.
I was thinking, is he gonna? What is he?
Well, you're a girl. I didn't want to ask anything. You know. I just keep beating around the bush. You know. So finally, just all right already.
So
anyway, thank you for saying yes.
And was there a lot of rehearsal with the other actors where you...
Surprisingly, I wasn't... Well, first of all, I thought I was going to go to your garage in Winnipeg.
Right.
And I'd pack my bag, and then suddenly we were in the forest in Budapest.
Yeah.
So that was a surprise.
And I've never had rehearsals. I've never had rehearsals before.
Oh,
I used to
really?
just... actors must love this. Just roll the camera and tell them what to do while the camera's rolling.
I love that. I do love that.
I did get a chance to do it a couple times
Yeah.
on Rumours when we were shooting without sound.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of dialogue in the movie, so I couldn't do it. But I've done it in the past a lot, and I've just liked thinking. I didn't like planning ahead too much, and just liked finding the moments, and it worked often, and just as often didn't work at all. But this one required rehearsals.
I really love, but I love the...
We'll have to do one like that
Yeah,
sometime. Yeah.
because obviously the director and the operator are your first port of call audience. And so, you know, when you're doing that in a more silent movie style, you're dancing with the director through the lens. So it's, I love that. But yeah, we had 3 or 4 days with all of the actors, and I think it was really useful because the tone, in a good way, was quite slippery, and we're all quite different actors. And
there's 7 different actors, 7 different approaches. It felt like, and it was fun to be reassured during the rehearsals that you were going to find yourselves in the same movie. Yeah. And I was quickly reassured, but you just don't know. I'd never done anything like this before. Yeah, I guess one big difference is we let the audience hear what they're saying. So it does change the vibe a lot, but it's still there in spirit. It's interesting. I don't know if this is on topic or not. I don't think so, but I'll take a chance. When I teach filmmaking, I often have students make autobiographical things like reenactments, or the simplest exercise is they just have to retrace the steps of the trip they take the most from point A to B, just the from home to school, and they have to film every few seconds, a couple of seconds of it, and then they edit it together. And so they're reproducing documentary style their lives, but then I make them put music on top of it, which just changes any chance of it being true at all, because music affects the way you interpret things. So we knew right away we had to set the tone of this movie. It's got many other elements other than a G7 summit in it. It has, I don't want to, spoiler alert, masturbating bog mummies and giant brains and things like that. And so it all had to feel like it belonged to one. And so one way to do that is with an array of musical score, buttressing or whatever, informing.
And Galen did, and I can't remember, I think it didn't end up in the movie though, did it? He did this amazing, you played it to me before we started.
Right.
He did a mashup of all of the national anthems from around the world.
Yeah, it's amazing.
He overlaid them and squished them, and so almost could glimpse one that you recognized, and it was gone in the
There's
the
a little
fog.
bit of it in that opening music that's
Yes.
really discordant and loud, and like a wall of sound. And I should post it on Instagram or something. It's a really haunting.
Do it.
Yeah, this really irritating wall of, it's a bit like
loved
Lou
it.
Reed's Metal Machine music, kind of.
it was really
just this, it's all these national anthems that are. We were briefly considering scoring the movie only with national anthems and stuff. It was getting to be a tall order. Galen's one of the co-directors, but he's also the sound designer in our partnership.
I also love that just even this clip, you know, slightly slowed down with a different score becomes a short film in unto itself.
Yeah, Galen did that.
Yeah, really,
did that as
really
well.
gorgeous.
He just slows it down.
Which segues us neatly into talking about the short form, because both of you, I think, as director and as actor and producer, have a real commitment to the short form, and that's an ongoing, space for both of you. So I wondered if you could talk about a little bit about what that does for you. Is it a freeing thing? Is it
Yeah, I've always liked to make shorts. I thought, lots of writers write novels and short stories. Why can't filmmakers do the same? But the fact is, filmmaking's more of an industry than writing, and that filmmakers often treat shorts as calling cards, and then once they get into features, there's no going back, and there's a perception that if someone's making shorts, they're struggling, stuff like that. But I've prided myself on creating the impression that I'm struggling, and I've made lots of shorts. Sometimes I make them with their commissions from a film festival to make something to celebrate their anniversary of some sort. But sometimes I would make them out of sheer loneliness, almost. You know, the way in old Judy Garland, Mickey Rooney movies, they decide to put on a musical just for fun, and I would decide to make a short just for fun and have some people come over and put on some makeup and, make a short. And some of them are terrible as a result, but others they just had so much loose freedom that they end up with a lot of energy and a lot of fun in them. But they were made for all sorts of different motivations, but I'm really glad I did them because they accumulated. I've made so many now that every now and then I'll just have a retrospective of shorts. So
one could be due here at IFFR, I suspect.
yes, that's just a big hint.
And Cate, you're also here representing a short that we have the world premiere here of at IFFR called Bozo Over Roses.
Bozo Over Roses, which we moonlighted while making a film in Budapest, not this one, but another one.
Right.
So I'm very excited for Maddie and Susie to show that.
I need to see that.
Yeah, that's after this, I think. So if
Is
you're
that
not
right?
doing anything, go and see it. It's really fabulous. It's really fabulous. I was pleased to be a small part of that. But I remember, back in the day, when I would go to the cinema.
Thank you.
And, they'd have shorts in front of movies. It was so great. And the Alamo Draft House, the one in Austin at least, they make a series of short trailer clips that are made specifically for the film that they're showing. It's so fabulous. It's like an amuse-bouche before a pairing of sorts, a creative pairing, which enhances the effect of the feature, but then the feature benefits from the short.
I love what we also see here is the commitment to experimentation, and both of you have had, I think, a profound commitment to that idea of pushing boundaries, of experimenting, and I really love seeing, Cate, that for you as a performer, that's still of interest,
Yeah, you have to have a healthy lack of consequence. How are you going to look in that tracksuit?
You look fabulous.
Yeah, I'll do that.
The movie looks amazing.
But you never know. You never know what anything is going to be. Nothing's a sure bet. So you kind of have to go in with everything expecting that it's not going to work, and how can you save it, don't you think?
You did that music video with Ron and Russell Mael, The Sparks.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you just had 1 or 2 takes or something. You just danced to their
No,
song.
because they asked me to record myself on my mobile phone, and I said, well, look, I'm going to be in LA next week, and they said, come by the studio. And then I was doing press for something, and it ran over, and I said, oh, I'm really sorry, guys, I'm not going to be able to come. And they went, oh no, we hired a space. I went, okay. So I went round, and I was preparing to do something. So I had my headphones on, and I'd had a suit, and I said, "What do you want me to? Have you got something for me to wear?" And you look great. Yeah. And so we just danced for a few times, and that was it.
But it's lovely.
It was fun. It was really fun.
Yeah, and it's one continuous shot, even.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, it's really good. So I don't know. Your instincts are excellent. In my opinion.
That was a come-on line.
Yeah, that's
Guy.
right.
Your instincts are excellent.
Yes. Don't resist your instincts. Do not
Don't
resist
resist my instincts.
Yes, that's
it's
right.
getting worse. You're getting deeper hole.
Well, it's been an absolute...
My instincts are a little off. But,
an absolute joy to be able to host both of you tonight. And before we go out, I think we've got the option. And I'm going to ask Guy and Cate to call it, and maybe the audience can get involved as well. We've got 2 of Guy's shorts lined up. And I think Guy knows which 2, but maybe he doesn't.
yeah, but one of them is shorter.
And you're just like looking at the get off the stage signal going, maybe we should play Spanky.
Well, it's an odd movie to show, but I could show that. It's a little bit. I think enough time has passed. I took my dog, which was a pug dog, for a walk every day. We had the same walk to the pier at the lake and back. It's about 1 kilometer in each direction, and the dog was getting kind of old. But and it occurred to me, one of my favorite movies is this movie by Oscar Fischinger, who in 1927 took a 16-millimeter camera with himself on a 16-day walk from Munich to Berlin. It's just called Wandering from Munich to Berlin, and he just would shoot, just people that he met and scenery along the way. And when you watch it, it's just 3 minutes of a journey. And it just occurred to me that what a great idea, a point A to B movie. And I will make a diary film, just edited in camera of my dog while we walk to the pier and back. And so I did it. And then the next day my dog died. And so it's this record of, like, that's devastating to me. But enough time has passed that I'll be fine.
What's the other option?
The other option is one of my favorite short films of all time, which is The Heart of the World.
Oh,
well, we could watch that. But should we watch that?
We watch what?
Okay. I'll just go in the
green
room and I'll just go in the green room and weep. No, The Heart of the World was a commission from the Toronto Film Festival for its 25th anniversary to create just a celebration of the Toronto Film Festival. And I thought, no, I'll make a celebration of cinema itself instead, so that it could play 25 years later here.
Well, I kind of actually want to leap in and look back, because I haven't seen this film on the big screen since it first made it. But we'll play that, I think, after we head off stage. So
all right, sure.
Let me ask the audience to join me in thanking both of you for being with us.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Claire.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.